what's up? This is Jason Drone. Today you're going to learn how to build DIY speaker rocks out of fiberglass. And these speaker rocks are going to be powered by both Bluetooth, a Bluetooth amp, and also Apple Airplay. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we need to find rocks. We need to find molds for the rocks. And what better way than finding a rock that is actually a real rock? We got tons of them around our house here. You can see Sebastian's going crazy.
That's a good size.
Good size.
Yeah. What you got?
Whoa. Okay.
So right down from our house a little bit, there's a cul-de-sac, and we have a 16-mile creek, a creek running behind our house. And when it floods, when the creek gets high, it washes over. So it's just this collection of rocks and tree stumps and all kinds of crazy stuff. And of course, there's geese around.
You what? Oh no. Whoa.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Get up there?
Yeah.
In creating a fiberglass mold, we need to actually have a compound, or a solution really, that will let you take fiberglass off of a surface, creating a mold. So we are doing that with a DIY hack, which is petroleum jelly and mineral spirits. You mix that down, you paint it on. When you buy fiberglass cloth, it comes in sheets. So you need to cut the fiberglass cloth to match whatever it is you're trying to create. And you can see here we're attempting to wrap the cloth around the rock. Some of the fiberglass release compound is, it's kind of wetting down, but it's not a big deal.
What is that?
Fiberglass. Smells incredible. When I was much younger, I used to do a lot of fiberglass with car audio and stuff, and I loved the smell of fiberglass. All right, so the process for fiberglass resin is really pretty simple. You buy resin, it comes with a hardener, and you pour resin in some sort of a container, then you mix the hardener in, make sure not to apply too much because it will harden quickly. And then we're painting that fiberglass resin on the rock, or on the cloth, the fiberglass cloth. And then after a couple hours, it is going to get hard and very, very, very strong. There's a rock that is already done. Depending on how much hardener you use, it will take, 2 or 3 hours to get fully hard. All right, so this is the next day, and we're cutting off the excess fiberglass, the stuff that was, perhaps 2 or 3 layers thick. Anything that would actually protrude from the rock surface itself. So we started with a cutoff wheel and an air compressor, and then we actually switched to a Dremel with a cutoff wheel. It works quite a bit better, largely because the air compressor doesn't need to recharge, and it lets you be a little bit more precise with the cuts. And you can see we're just peeling off all of that fiberglass that was just kind of hanging out there, didn't necessarily have any form to it. And then here, this guy is freaking heavy, super, super heavy. So we're going to go through and cut off the bottom of the fiberglass where it wasn't really formed all that well. And then we're going to go ahead and fiberglass a new bottom to this rock after we peel it out. Here we're adding another layer of fiberglass. So fiberglass layer number 2, just to make the cloth a little bit more sturdy. And we got the speakers from Amazon, speakers in amp and Airplay setup. So we're going to test that out. It accepts an auxiliary input, you can see right there. And we have a volume control here. And it goes to the speakers. So what we're going to do is we are going to connect that musical 12-volt Airplay setup to this. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to be outputting music into that setup. So we're just going to skip Pandora. We're listening to Disturbed. So we are going to click the Airplay icon. Now that Airplay device is named Rubble Rock. There it goes. Alright, so this is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily care for Bluetooth. I had to actually unpair Bluetooth from my phone in order to be able to pair it up with Chelsea's. Alright, so my plan is we're going to take the Dremel and we are going to cut the fiberglass off of these rocks. So we're going to make a cut up the middle, probably up a corner, and then we're going to try to peel this guy out of the fiberglass. Then we're going to reattach it at the seam and then finish the bottoms of all three of these. So this first rock went really easy. The second rock was a little bit more difficult. I had to make a couple cuts down the corner. And then this third rock was ridiculous. So I needed reinforcements, like in the worst way. So we were trying to peel it out with screwdrivers and trying to break this thing out. And there was just a couple places that it just wasn't on, the fiberglass just wasn't releasing. So we ended up cutting down the sides a little bit. Eventually it did go. Eventually. Part of the problem with this big rock was it was just so heavy, you know, so moving it or flipping it or changing sides or whatever just took forever. And yeah, it just wasn't releasing the way it needed to. All right, so that wasn't a whole lot of fun. Basically what happened was when we prepared the rocks, we didn't have any like fiberglass release compounds. So what we did was we used Vaseline and mineral spirits, and if you mix them down, then it will create like a paste kind of that you can put on top of something and create a mold. So that's what we did. Worked great around the top, you know, didn't necessarily work around the bottom where we didn't, you know, put the Vaseline and mineral spirits real well. So that was a little weird. Piece was the Dremel. These wheels kept breaking. The little grommet around the inside that attaches the wheel to the Dremel kept breaking. So I went through like 3 wheels. So we ended up breaking out the air compressor chop saw. That worked out pretty well. But all in all, you know, we got kind of this weird residue on top of these rocks, which is fine. And we have some pretty good molds. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fix the seams with fiberglass, and then we are going to put some putty or Bondo or chromate or, you know, some sort of a filler compound, sand them down a little bit just to kind of get some of this issue out of it, so it doesn't necessarily look like fiberglass. And then we're going to paint them and put all the internals inside. So right here I'm wrapping the bottom and then fiberglassing, applying some resin to the cloth, and then we're going through and cutting off all the excess of, you know, whatever was on the bottom. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to mix up some of this Bondo and apply it to our rocks, which will give us a nice smooth coating. We can sand down a little bit. Obviously the rocks, we don't need to make them too crazy, but We do want them to be somewhat smooth, somewhat the way we found them. So that's next. So body filler is similar to the fiberglass resin. It comes in basically a can, and then you mix the hardener in with it. And the hardener activates pretty quickly, so don't use a whole lot. But there's lots of different kinds of this body filler. Bondo is the brand name. If you go into like an automotive specific store, it's called the Chromate. There's a lot of different kinds. Some of them have fiberglass in them, but this is just a straight Bondo. So you mix it up, you apply it to the fiberglass molds. We don't necessarily need something perfect, but we want to make sure to, basically just smooth out all of the things all of the imperfections in the rock, even though it's rock. So even here I was sanding and I didn't want to get too crazy with it, but still, like, the small part of me that was a perfectionist was like, I should really probably sand this down or fill in this little tiny gap or whatever. Just a little side note here. I realize these rocks are going to be outside. We're going to straight up drill holes in the top of it here in a minute. But I still wanted to make it look pretty seamless, like it was an actual rock, so I didn't want to have like any kind of weird holes. Alright, so now we're looking at the inside of the speaker rock. As you can see, all the fiberglass and various things are in there. We're probably going to want to reinforce this bottom a little bit, so I'll throw some mat down there. Alright, so I kind of modified a piece of plastic, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it inside of this rock, creating a mounting bracket. And then I also really hated the way that this non-removable grill sat over top, because it's going to be difficult to, even though there's going to be holes drilled in the rock, I didn't necessarily want to see a bunch of white inside of a darker rock. So here, I'm going to show you what I did. I literally just cut the grill off with crimpers, wire cutters, whatever, and then I just spray painted them with rubberized undercoating, which is what I'm dropping here. So I wanted to give it like a texture, and I wasn't sure how texture the texture paint was going to be that we're going to apply to it. Here we are mapping the grids for the holes that we're going to be drilling in the top of it, and I just poked right through, because this is seriously fiberglass. We're drilling, and this took a little bit of time. Alright, so now what I'm doing, I went through and I drilled all the holes, and then a little bit of fiberglass. So what I did was I went through and I burned them all with a little torch, just to kind of singe some of the edges. Now I'm going through and just making the holes a little bit better with the Dremel, and then I'm going to go through, throw another coat of undercarriage, rubberized undercoating on it. And then we will get the inside installed and the outside painted. All right, now we chose this multicolored textured Rust-Oleum product to put the final coat on our rock. All right, now we're all sprayed up. What we're gonna do is mount our speakers to our support system. Then we're going to place support system. All right, now we are all dry, and everything is, for the most part, very rock-like. And then we have an amp to drive the speakers. Speaker connections are here and here, so everything should be set to go here in a minute. That big one is the rock that we made the mold out of, and these things are set to go. So here they're installed. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below, and I will talk to you soon, all right? Thanks. Bye.